All right, thank you for invitation behalf of myself and also behalf of Israel. And in my presentation today, very first I need to say a few words about Israel and how Israel also is very committed to work with the Turkish Association, because we feel that in many ways the conditions in India and the conditions in Turkey may be similar, that we are in the first steps in this commissioning road, and maybe the actions we need to take are slightly different than in countries like Germany or Denmark, where the commissioning has been happening already 15, 20 years. And then basically I'm talking about what drives, why the Indian people first of all want to do the commissioning. And then why it actually is not necessarily as successful as it could be. Then I'm going to talk about a little bit from the association point of view that why Israel thought that the commissioning standard is required, why we need a national standard, and what is the process and how we are going to do it. Then I want to say a few words about the air quality standard as well and how that is actually linked to the commissioning. And then in the end, I take a couple of real-life examples from the real projects. And I'm actually not going to talk what went well, I'm going to talk what went wrong. And then what should be the role of the third-party commissioning engineer. Okay, so Israel is actually an association which is almost as big as the RIVA in Europe. We have 42 chapters and they have sub-chapters. We have 30,000 members, so we are a big association. And last 5 years, Israel has actually kind of, earlier we were like the place where ASHRAE came, gave lectures, they came to teach us, and we paid money for them to do so. But about 5 years ago, the association decided that why can't we do our technical work ourselves? And now we have already several standards. The chiller testing standard was the first standard where actually Eric was very much involved. Eric is a big brand in India because his contribution especially to the chiller standard. And then the indoor air quality standard, we have already the second edition. And now we are preparing the VRF standard, commissioning standard, filter standard. So many new standards are coming. And of course, Israel is like any association. We do training, we do now publications, we do all these same things in India. And we are very keen now for the cooperation. Like for cooperation, like working together. Like the commissioning guidebook was a cooperation work with RIVA and Israel. And we believe that we have also something to contribute to the common table, that we don't need to wait someone else to do the publication and then come to teach us, that we also can now contribute technically to many of these topics. And in the last thing about RIVA, we also about the Israel, we also have a really big exhibition once a year, where this year also the commissioning will be one of the topics. It's an ACREX exhibition 27th to 29th of February. So if anybody is interested what is happening in India, you are more than welcome to come. Okay, I thought that in case I'm the first speaker, I actually prepared 2 slides about the process, but I think I now mainly skipped them. I just want to say that today we have been talking about the initial commissioning phase. Commissioning actually is a life cycle project, continuing then with the ongoing commissioning, retro-commissioning, and actually the commissioning is finished when the building is demolished. So it's a never-ending process. Okay, this we can skip. So why clients in India do commissioning? 99% of the clients do it because it's a mandatory in the Green Building Certificate. LEED started it, so you couldn't get the LEED if you didn't do the commissioning, at least on the paper. And then when the Indian Green Building Council was creating their own green building standard, they almost dropped off the commissioning, but I managed to convince them to put it back as a mandatory requirement. So at least now we have a reason to do a commissioning. Okay, we maybe have 4 or 5 clients who also think that this way their buildings get better. But still the key reason is that I need a certificate, because certificate means higher money for me as a rent and when I sell my building. We are the country where there are second highest number of green buildings in the world. Actually, there is a LEED has published the statistics, and they say India is 4th because they only count the LEED certified buildings, which are about 1,883. But we have 5,500 projects now going on with Indian Green Building Council, and we have a third system called GRIHA, 1,700 projects. So we have nearly 10,000 projects in India at the moment which are supposed to be commissioned. But at the same time, people are talking about the greenwashing. Green buildings just do not deliver. The expectations that everybody has for the green buildings are not happening in India, they are not happening in US, they are not happening anywhere in the world at the moment. And I claim that one, or if not the biggest reason, is that these buildings, even though they are commissioned, they were not commissioned properly. And now, in the next few slides, I'm a little bit provocating, but once you now you know that you need to do a commissioning and you want a certificate. This is a real, actually, road sign from India in Kerala. So you have several roads to the same destination. And now I thought that I share with you guys 3 typical roads what happens in the real projects in India. First road I call commissioning by phone. So once you are nominated as a third-party commissioning agent, you quickly put all these documents which were earlier showed together, and you create all the planning documents properly. Then the next step you do is that you start to call the contractor that, have you already finished? Have you already finished? And when they say they have finished, you make one trip to the site to sign all the documents. And then another big task is, of course, to fulfill or fill in the LEED certification documentation. Okay, so you get the certificate, so you get what you wanted, but you may not get the documentation part properly because it's all fake, and definitely don't get the performance. Then this is even more extreme case, and I know for sure that one of the biggest developers in India, this is how they do, number 1 says my husband, this is how they do the commissioning. Once the project is finished, they employ an intern to an office to fake everything. Everything. And these interns are damn good because they are also able to get the certificate. So this intern doesn't even know about the HVAC. In this case, I know it was an architect boy who created all the testing and balancing documents for HVAC, plumbing, for everything. And then you fill in the certificate. And of course, if the boy is good or the girl is good, you get the certificate. But yeah, again, the performance and the documentation may fail. Then we have about 10 to 15 clients who are at the moment on the phase which I would say we do the commissioning at site. Still today, no one employs you in the pre-design phase. Even how hard I have tried, with best of the clients, they think they are super early if they are employing us during the installation phase. And then in the installation phase, I start to prepare the documents. But of course, the challenge is that how do I anymore put them into the contractor's contracts, because the contract has already been handed over. at least we inspect all installations and we inspect all testing. So all the projects we have been involved, I have my own person every single day at site. Because otherwise the testing, balancing and adjustment, that doesn't happen if we are not there. It is also very important that the contractor is responsible, because this commissioning project and the third-party commissioning and commissioning manager or provider or authority is not supposed to take the responsibility away from the contractor. Contractor has a contract with client. They are responsible delivering the results. We are there to help them and to witness and to kind of supervise the work. And then we don't only sign, we don't only like test here and there, and we do try to get lots of different kind of things someone to do, and sometimes even the client agrees to pay more to the contractor to do the proper testing, but it's always like a little bit too late. But at least lots of good things are happening, and in this way we are at least able to improve the performance, but still the documentation part, because it was not systematic from the beginning, is not necessarily that well done. And then of course, this what Cormac and Ubaldo was showing is like a dream. This is what I write to the commissioning plan. Every client, I make a commissioning plan. I still write every single step, even I start practically from the step number 6. Because I'm hoping that if I always write the full process, maybe one day they realize themselves that, oh, by the way, why we have these 5-10 pages of plan before in the document we never use that. Maybe this way we could kind of get towards this kind of holistic commissioning where the work is done from the beginning to the end. Of course, now another challenge we have in India is that the clients have now decided that the big projects, you can't get the HVAC commissioning separately. We have to do the full mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So now I'm writing the electrical commissioning plans as well, and then I have the subcontractors who are actually coming and doing it and helping me with the planning, the electrical side. But we really need to take the full responsibility. They pay us hardly nothing from us being there every day. We have now on a process to do a really big, one of the biggest construction projects in India, 250,000 square feet project. Square meters, sorry, 250,000 square meter project. The project value is 300 million US dollars. And our fee is 0.03% of the building value, about 100,000 euros for MEP, not only the HVAC. And the client expects us to be every day on site. But still it's a more profitable business than the HVAC design in India. But like, I come from a country where like, you don't get the American or even the Italian prices from this work. You work like a slave. Okay. So now then, what Israel has actually done in terms of like overcoming these challenges. First we thought that, because people doesn't know what is a commissioning. Everybody thinks commissioning is same than testing, adjustment and balancing, or measurement and verification. They either ask M&V or TAP, when they actually should ask the commissioning. And therefore, about 3 years ago, I got a contract from Israel and Riva to kind of be a chair of the task group who prepared a commissioning guidebook, which has now been published both in India under Israel logo and in Europe under Riva logo. If you buy from Riva, you need to pay 50 euros, but if you order it from Israel, you get it with 10 euros, plus the post. So reason to do cooperation with India. We are cheap. Okay. So the commissioning guidebook basically explains the process, the same process. We have heard here what Eurovent has done with Riva, what ICAR is doing, what ASRE is doing. So it is not a different process. It is the same process. But we also try to answer the questions like that, why the commissioning is needed. But we also talk about, we have chosen about 20 equipments, the most common HVAC equipments to that guidebook, where we try to explain that what are the important things when you commission each of them. Now later I have found already many things missing there, and so, but it's still a very good basic book, so if you haven't really done the commissioning, it's good to read. And then of course now the question is that then we decided to do a local standard as well, and you can ask that, why in the earth we need a local standard? Because the ASRE standard is so good. And it is true, it is very good. But if I go to an Indian contractor and I say that now you need to use the ASRE standard, they say, oh, madam, it's international, it's too complicated. Madam, you don't understand the Indian business at all because you are the foreigner. We need to know what is the bare minimum we have to do. And now we thought that, okay, let's make the bare minimum for them. Let's make the same thing as a bare minimum, but this is now an Indian standard. Now you don't have to question anymore, either this is what you should do or not. And then of course we hope that later, like already first Israeli standard has become the national standard of India, we then obviously hope that next 3 to 5 years this standard also reaches the level where the Bureau of Indian Standards makes it as a mandatory, and we get it part of the National Building Code. Then the other good reason, again, is, like I said about the guidebook, that ASRE standards are costing about $100 per standard. And I don't know, they have 5 or 6 or whatever. Who contractor is spending so much money even to buy one set of copies of these standards? So we need to create a local documentation where this entire thing is put to one document which is costing $10. So then we at least have a hope that the industry actually at least buys it. Maybe they still don't follow, but at least they have it. The standard is relatively short. We actually wasted 1 year to discussing that what all we need to include to the standard. Everybody was talking, we have to talk about this chiller valve, and we have to talk about this kind of component, and that product, and that product. And after 1 year, they all got convinced that actually no, what we need to standardize is the process, not the actual commissioning activities. And I'm sure that when you start and you have the committee, you have to go through this same pain. But it is important because then people get committed and they start to understand why the process approach is the only approach to go ahead. Then we have the appendices. And one thing what we have done, like ASRE has separate standards, but the Appendix 8 installation and inspection, now we have then again chosen some of the most common systems, and the plan is that the test reports and like the commissioning checklists and procedures have been given as an informative appendix, not as a standard, because we know that this chiller, if we have this kind of a compressor in chiller or that kind of a compressor, the process is different. So how can we standardize it? It is not possible. But we can still talk the most common components and give the kind of guidance to the clients. Then I was also part of the indoor environment quality standard, where the first version we developed 2017, and now we have the second edition came out 2 months ago. And it is the best indoor air quality standard in the world, because nobody outside the committee was interested in what we are doing. Nobody cared, nobody in industry. There was no one to fight against us. We were able to create a standard we think is technically good, because no one thought that we actually ever get anything done. ASRAE, I think they tried the indoor air quality standard first time 20 years ago, but there were so many different views from the industry that they gave up. And I think now they are on the process to try to do the same, but at the moment the ASRAE president, when they talk about air quality, they use the Indian air quality standard. And this work actually opened the door for Israel to be now part of the ISO standardization group for indoor air quality. So the local standards are important for you as an association to demonstrate that you have something to contribute also to the global discussion. And then rather than other people come and give things to you, you get to the tables to decide how these things are done in the world.
Maija, last 15.
Fine. So we have like A, B, and C class. And why this standard is so good is that it's 100% performance-based. We don't tell you what kind of a filter you need. We don't tell you anything what prescribes the technology. We just tell you the end result. This is the lighting level you need to reach. This is the noise level. This is the air quality level. And this is the thermal comfort level. And it's a very easy standard, actually, from the client's point of view. And next client, I'm telling why it is very important also from the commissioning point of view. Because now here, if we would have said that, okay, F7 filter, they put F7 filter and then air quality is bad, what to do? They have fulfilled the job. But if we say that you have to reach 15 microgram per cubic meter PM 2.5 level, even they put HEPA filter, and if the result is not met, it is still their responsibility to rectify, and the client actually can expect the result. And now we then come to the owner's project requirements. As long as, it was in the first presentation, you talked a little bit about this one as well, that if the OPR is weak, you use first of all, you have to have it. In India, even the best clients, I create the OPRs afterwards because it's too embarrassing to apply for lead if you don't have it. So first you have to have it, but secondly, when you do it, don't use the word slow, excellent, sufficient, environmental friendly. How do we commission the building if this is how things are specified? We need hard numbers. And for the client to know what numbers to use, the standards have to give them the numbers. Especially in the country where they are not used to specify these things. India, and I'm sure in Turkey, also, they don't really know what is a good air quality. But if you have a standard where you have said that, okay, 12 or 15 is good, standard says 15. This client wants to be even better. He sets the 12. So this is why also it's not just the commissioning standard, but all the standards have to support the same task, that we can specify the performance specifically. And this is actually now what LEED have to do as well. Now you still tick the boxes in LEED to get the certificate, but continue the certificate, you actually have to demonstrate the actual performance in the actual numbers. So whatever standards you create, forget the old-fashioned F7 filtration class or ISO E PM 2.5 more than 80% kind of standards. Go for the performance-based. It's a big headache for designers. It's a big headache for the contractors. They all hate this. But don't tell them. Get the standard first and don't tell them what kind of troubles they end up. And then you can create the guidelines to help them. That, okay, with this guideline, we give you some kind of idea that this is probably the technology you should use to reach these levels. And then it's easy to update the standards as well later. You can just change the numbers every year. The energy performance index goes 5% less every second or third year. Very simple to update. You don't have to study every different industry, how the manufacturing industry or the office or the hospital works. Because the high energy performance is the high energy performance. And now then the third-party commissioning. Why do we need the third-party commissioning even the contractor is in charge of the commissioning? You all remember the manufacturing industry 20 years ago. Every company employed a quality consultant. And then they set up the quality team. They nominated someone from the management team to be the quality director, and then they have a quality managers, and then they have the quality inspectors. Today, no factory has any of this because the quality is already part of their everyday operation. I personally see that the third-party commissioning is actually something similar. That it is something now that we need to take our industry to the required level. But the day when the contractors actually do the job properly, or the contractor is actually the one who comes with the specialist and says that, okay, we employed this company now to come with us to do the proper job, then the client doesn't have to anymore employ the third-party commissioning company. But our job right now is mainly quality-related, and I would say that in practice we have to be the ears and eyes of the client, because the client are not technical people. So we need to be their trusted person on site. And whatever we see is not happening properly, it's our duty to go and tell the client. Client is then the one who needs to tell the contractor either it's acceptable or not. They may still approve the poor performance, but at least it was like the decision made based on the real facts and information. We need also a big mouth. You were saying that we need to do lots of documentation and send lots of emails. I claim that in India you can send 1,000 emails and nothing happens. The real case is that let's say every Wednesday afternoon they have this big contractor meeting on site. You go to that meeting, you wait once the project head from the client walks into the room, and then you say, I want to say something. You go to the front and you start to shout them. And you start to show the pictures how everything goes badly. And you make like a huge issue about it. Next day, this client project head goes to the site and then the thing starts to happen. But if you just send the emails goes to nothing happens. So you need big ears, big eyes, and a big mouth. And I can't come back to Europe anymore because they would think I'm crazy when I start to shout on the construction meeting. Okay, so then just in the end, like the real life challenges, and in this quality inspection, most of the actually they do well the complicated things. The biggest problem why we are needed are these very simple things. And it's actually a question about not the brain, about the heart and your mind. Do you really care? Do you really think this is important? And if you care, then you start to kind of see the things. Few examples. Is this the way how to handle the ducts for the client who has their own indoor air quality standard, who accepts the super air quality, and then this is the reality on site? I thought this is like the waste pieces that been thrown out. No, this was the duct storage. Yeah. We have a huge issue with filters. Nobody, whatever has been specified, the client always gets the cheapest filter with with bad installation. Nobody bothers if you have 9 screws, maybe 2 has been tightened. And then this middle picture is from the contractor. I claimed that I didn't need to do a duct pressure testing because you stand 2 meters from the duct where the joint is and you can feel the airflow out. And I said that you have to tighten, and I sent him all the instructions I go to witness. They had this blue like a wrapping packing tape. Tape the duct. So did he really care? And this is one of the most prestigious schools in Delhi, where the owner was committed to improve the indoor air quality in order to increase the school fees. But with this kind of attitude, he can't increase the school fees because we can't deliver the air quality. Underfloor air supply. Contractor was supposed to clean the underfloor, and they did clean 3 months before handover. But who cares that in 3 months how much dirt gets there? They say, oh, but we have already done the cleaning. So if you specify the cleaning, you should have specified the cleanliness. Now in India, nobody does a proper fire insulation anymore. I don't know, maybe you still put like the fire insulation and cladding. They all use now this paint. And like you can see, many of these pieces has been quite completed, and also this corner piece, it is painted. But unfortunately, maybe a little bit too little, and in case of fire, we have a problem, but the contractor has painted. Again, he has fulfilled the specification, but has he fulfilled the kind of the real purpose why we do this painting? The pipes needs to be insulated, and we need to put a clamps. Both has been fulfilled, but the clamp is so tight, there is a condensation. This water keeps dripping inside the air handling unit. The air handling unit manufacturer doesn't care because he didn't install the pipe. It's not his responsibility. They say, what do I do if the filter gets wet? And this other guy said that, but look, I have done all my work. So, but it's not only on site. We have actually so many issues already in the planning and documentation. Owner's project requirements we already discussed. If they exist, they are not specific enough. Then, the sequence of operation. I have not seen a single site in India yet where the consultant actually gave a sequence of operation that is for that project. That document has been created, it's some generic document, but doesn't actually talk about this project side. And because the sequence of operation actually is a useless document, then when the PMS contractor comes, there is an IT engineer who practically programs. We have all these most expensive equipments in the world nowadays in India. And then we have an IT guy who is trying to guess how these systems are supposed to work, when, and what are the right set values. So this IT guy sets up the actual performance. And then we go later and we start to look at the PMS and evaluate how the building works. And it could even be that not every sensor has been connected. Or actually for them to pass the kind of the checking, they create these random loops to generate the random numbers that it looks like it works, but actually it doesn't. And because the commissioning planning was not done early enough, it is no one's responsibility on site to do the work. And now this system O&M manual, I want to highlight the word system. every project has an O&M manual and every project have a training. O&M manual is a bunch of manufacturers' leaflets, and the training is the training where each manufacturer shows you, okay, you need to turn this button here to start up the air handling unit, and this is where you close it, and this is the room thermostat, this is where you set the temperature. But that's not the training we mean here. We want them to explain that, okay, in the monsoon season or in the summer season or the winter season, these are the cooling coils that should open. These are the heating coils should open. This is how in the different situations the system should operate. But they can't do this manual because the sequence of operation wasn't there. And then they actually don't know what the IT guy programmed to the PMS. The IT guy doesn't have the responsibility of documentation. So therefore, nobody actually knows what has been programmed. And if that guy leaves the company where he worked and goes to another company, no one in this world knows what is actually happening in the PMS. Last slide. And now, then about the testing also. Like, we say, okay, ductwork tightness needs to be tested. Fine. But at the moment, even the best HVAC engineers in India is specifying that the ductwork tightness testing is a light testing. Means that you put your head inside the duct, and if you don't see the light, you are happy. So testing and testing. Or should you do this 2-hour leakage testing with the proper leakage test machine and get the report and compare with the NATCA? But testing was done. We have 2 biggest contractors in India. I have now seen their own checklist. When they come to check the air handling units, they have about 10 items to check during the start-up and the process. Where in this Israel Riva book, we have more than 40 items. And then the functional performance test in the automated mode is typically not done at all, because the contractor is happy when they have tested the chiller, they have tested the air handling unit, and there is like nobody whose responsibility it is if they don't have the third-party commissioning provider or manager on the site to actually make sure that this test is done. But it is actually very difficult to do because the PMS contractor typically starts like a month before handover. And the PMS gets ready about 3 months to 6 months after the project. So how do you do the testing? And if you don't do the testing when it's handed over, actually what the facility team then starts to do, when the first occupant complains something, they start to do their own adjustment. So even that little work that was done is all wasted before the PMS is ready, because everything is in manual mode. So please, please, please get the PMS people on board much earlier than today, because it is a crucial, especially if the PMS is supposed to control the systems. Of course, now in India they talk about this light integration where the PMS only reads, and there are like sub-controls, like a smaller systems to actually control the system. So now, to conclude, my question is that who should care? Of course, the client cares. But if the client has now employed the third-party commissioning person, company, whatever, we are there. Our main responsibility is to care. But sometimes it is very, very difficult because if we try to care, how do we actually get the real action happening? And now, if we would have the local standards, guidebooks, if the association starts providing the training, and of course we also need tools, like what has been now done with the Copilot, it's an excellent tool once we get all this nitty-gritty right, but also the co-pilot will fail, or actually you will get failed in the first step, the first audit you have. It's always stopped there if we don't understand what the process is. When you then develop these standards and processes, don't start to invent the wheel again. The biggest reason for you to create the local standard is to get the local commitment, not to try to invent a new commissioning process. And this is what TTM should do to offer support for poor us, who are then as a slaves working on the construction site, trying to fight against the biggest contractors in the country. And oh my God, how they are big bosses and try to threaten us that, oh, I'm going to show you. So then you need the TTMD standard and say that, but sir, we have a standard. This is how we should do it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.